Today and tomorrow. Hello, I will be summing it up as an introduction, and the other presenters will be talking about relationship between microbiota and other illnesses. The studies in this area have started during the time of Hippocrates. Hippocrates has said all disease begins in the gut. If the gut is sick, the rest of the body is doomed to be sick as well. However, in the last 5 years, we have seen a higher number of studies looking into this area. 4,000 articles have been published in this area in the last 5 years, and 90% of these studies have taken place in the last 5 years. Let's talk about some key definitions. Microbiota are all microorganisms living in and on humans. Microbiome is the general term used. Let's continue with definitions. They're very simple, but they're actually very often confused. Prebiotics, probiotics, and antibiotics. Prebiotics are nutrients that increase the number of selectively beneficial bacteria, decreasing the harmful bacteria. Probiotics are nutrients or products containing the desired bacterial cocktail. Antibiotics are drugs that alter the microbiota in an important and unpredictable way. So we don't say they eliminate, but sometimes they do increase and decrease. Some general information: there are 40 trillion human cells in the intestines, 100 trillion microorganism cells, there are 22,000 people genes, and 9.8 million microorganism genes exist. Therefore, humans are not only made of human cells, but also microbial cells. So humans are actually a superorganism. There are 6 bacterial phylum. 90% of these are, as shown on the screen. Microbiota are affected by many different factors like genetic factors, diet, and environment. And there is also interaction among these factors. There are some factors determining microbiota all the way from fetal period to the old age. They are in interaction. One of the most important or striking factors here is that some bacteria increase if there is malnutrition. Particularly the pink ones on the screen have increased. So what are these microorganisms good for? Well, actually they work in many ways. They work on the following fields: on metabolism of indigestible fibers, in the production of certain vitamins and amino acids, in the release and regulation of the gut hormones, in the formation of inflammatory response. And I would like to talk about the relationship between microbiota and brain. There is a microbiota gut-brain axis. It works in both ways. This two-way communication involves autonomic nervous system and the enteric nervous system. So entropin cells, cytokines, and bacterial molecules, nervous phagos, and other synergic cells are used to induce the brain. Let's talk about the serotonin synthesis. It's a spore-forming bacteria in the mouse, microbiota, colonic enterochromaffin cells, and 5-HT biosynthesis in the colon and the blood. And this increases particularly in the colon and the blood. It's not only about the serotonin synthesis, it's also noradrenaline and serotonin and dopamine synthesis are increased as well. They affect the immune system, particularly in the human's body. Undigestible cellulose and other carbohydrates are broken down and they are converted into short fat in the human body. So what do these do? We see that If you could please slow down for the interpretation. This is particularly seen in vitro anti-inflammatory cytokine IL-10 and pro-inflammatory factors IL-1B, IL-6, and TNF-A. Apart from that, these short-chain fatty acids are expressed in high amounts in the blood-brain barrier. They pass through into the brain and they can be effective as such. Microbiota can affect many parts of the immune system and cause cerebral problems. They also affect epithelial cells, intestinal dendritic cells, and macrophage, and can get into interactions. So cytokines are actually directly related to many psychiatric problems like autism spectrum disorder, depression, so on and so forth. Microbiota can use bacterial molecules to affect, for example, lactobacillus and bifidobacteria can synthesize gamma-aminobutyric acid from monosodium glutamate, and this can affect the brain and cause various neuropsychiatric illnesses. In the autonomic nervous system, we see that there is an interaction between microbiota and the autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system has an inhibitory effect on the intestinal system. We also know that under stressful conditions, when the sympathetic system becomes active, the intestinal epithelium integrity disrupts and changes the intestinal motility. This is what we see out of various studies in this area. Intestinal microbiota affects the brain with vagus nerve. Particularly, Lactobacillus and Bifidium given to rats cause various behavioral changes and increases anxiety. Corticosteroids increase decelerates. However, in vacuumized patients, these changes do not take place. Therefore, this shows Harness vagus is actually influential. In animals treated with serodentio, there are neurons in vagal sensory ganglia. This works in the following way. C-phos proteins are positive. They are the first proto-oncogen that's produced if there's an external stimulus. Similarly, SCFA, which are microbiota metabolites, can directly affect spinal afferent fibers, and that modulates the activity of central neurons in a direct way. HPA-axis intestinal microbiota in rats exposed to water avoidance stress, we observe that HPA-axis activity increases, the levels of cortisol and pro-inflammatory cytokines increases, intestinal microbiota changes, and intestinal inflammation also surges. In rats subjected to smell bulbectomy, chronic depression-like behaviors, increase in central CRH, increased motility in the bowel, and changes in the microbiota profile and in the intestine are observed. There are some studies conducted on germ-free mouse. This is important in the sense that germ-free means free from any germs. This is laboratory environment mice, and in these mice we see that intestinal microbial inoculated GF mouse actually has different levels, and all of these studies show us that the guts and the brain are in interaction. And some sources, like the media, claim that the way the intestines work the way that the intestines work prove that there's actually a new or another organ in the human body, which is the microbiota. So the microbiota is claimed to act like an organ. My colleagues will be elaborating on this shortly.